The air around you is cold, damp and suffocatingly still. You're thousands of feet below the surface, working by the flickering light of a candle lamp. Every creak and groan of the earth sends a chill down your spine, because down here, danger is always just a breath away. And then, as you start digging, you hear it, faint but unmistakable. Knock, knock, knock. What would you do? Call out for a fellow miner? Or would you stop, hold your breath, and listen carefully? Because some say those knocks are more than just random echoes in the dark. They're warnings or guides from something ancient, unseen, and mysterious. Welcome to Podcast Folklore. I'm your host Chris, and today we are descending into the eerie, enchanting world of knockers, tommyknockers, and their uncanny relatives from around the globe. These small, elusive creatures are whispered about in mining lore everywhere from Cornwall, England to Bolivia. They have been blamed for accidents, credited with saving lives, and celebrated as guardians of the deep. So, let's light our lanterns, grab our tools, and explore the stories of these mischievous protectors. And don't forget, always leave an offering. Our journey begins in the rugged landscapes of Cornwall, England, where the tin mines once carved deep scars into the earth and the stories of knockers became legend. These little folk, named for the distinctive knocking sounds they made, are said to inhabit the dark, labyrinthine tunnels, just living out of sight of miners who toiled night and day. Despite their sometimes eerie attributes, knockers are generally depicted as approachable and even endearing when treated with respect. Their appearance reflects their connection to the hard-working miners they accompany, making them feel like earthly, grounded beings rather than entirely ethereal spirits. Knockers are often depicted as being diminutive, typically around 2 to 3 feet tall, with stocky gnome-like bodies. Their small stature allows them to navigate the tight, winding tunnels of the mines with ease. They're said to wear miners' attire, such as rough tunics, breeches, and sometimes small hats resembling the clothing of the 18th and 19th century Cornish miners. In various descriptions, their hat and skin changes. Some stories describe knockers as having long, shaggy hair, while others suggest short and cropped hair. Their skin is usually depicted as earthly, greyish, sooty, or tinged with a metallic sheen, blending in with the subterranean environment. Knockers are often portrayed as carrying tiny versions of miners' tools such as picks and hammers. These tools are said to make the characteristic knocking sounds that give them their name as they work alongside miners, or warn them of impending danger. In some stories, knockers are said to emit a faint ethereal glow, making them visible in pitch-black tunnels. This glow is sometimes described as greenish or silvery, adding to their supernatural mystique. The knockers weren't just mysterious troublemakers, they were actually seen as guardians. Miners believed the rhythmic tapping sounds that echoed through the tunnels were the knockers' way of communicating. Sometimes they served as warnings, alerting the miners to dangers of unstable walls or poisonous gases. Other times the knockers were guides, their knocks pointing the way to hidden veins of tin and copper, a lifeline in an otherwise perilous world. And so, let us hear a tale of the knockers. In 1823, at the famous Dogholth mine, known as the Queen of Cornish Mines, a group of miners had nearly given up on the barren tunnel. They searched for days and found nothing but rock. Then, they began to hear it, a series of sharp, consistent knocks. Some dismissed it as the groaning of the earth, but others were convinced that it was the knockers trying to show them the way. Following the sound, they struck a rich deposit of tin, the very lifeblood of Cornwall's mining industry. The discovery revitalised the mine, it saved jobs and brought prosperity to the community. The miners believed that without a doubt that the knockers had led them to the treasure. However, knockers weren't always so benevolent. Neglecting them or not showing them respect could have dire consequences. You see, the miners had rituals. They would often leave small offerings of food, crumbs from pasties, or splashes of cider at the edges of tunnels to appease the unseen helpers. To do otherwise was to invite misfortune. There is another tale, darker than the first, of a miner named Tom who scoffed at the knockers. He mocked their warnings, claimed the sounds were nothing more than shifting rock. One day, Tom heard furious knocking as he prepared to enter a new tunnel. He ignored it, laughing at his fellow miners' hesitation. Moments after entering the shaft, the tunnel collapsed, burying him alive. To the other miners, it was clear. The knockers had tried to warn him, but his disrespect sealed his fate. Even their mischief carried a sense of purpose. Tools would vanish, only to reappear in odd places. Lanterns would be extinguished without warning, leaving the miners in complete darkness. While these tricks were frustrating, many believed they were reminders, gentle nudges to show gratitude and humility towards the spirits of the mines. But why did these stories emerge in the first place? Mining, as you can imagine it, was back-breaking, dangerous work. The tunnels were unstable, the air was filled with choking dust, and accidents were unheartbreakingly common. For the miners, the knockers represented hope and companionship in the face of relentless peril. They weren't just folklore, they were protectors, confidants, and sometimes scapegoats for the mysterious forces of the deep. With such experience, it is no wonder that the Cornish miners emigrated to other parts of the world like the United States and Australia, and with their emigration, they also brought their stories of the knockers with them. The belief in these underground spirits provided a sense of control in an environment that was anything but predictable. So what do you think? Could these sounds have been the echoes of shifting rock, or do you believe, as the miners did, that the knockers were more than just a myth? Either way, the stories endure, as vibrant as ever in the whispering memories of Cornwall's mining heritage. From Cornwall, let us journey to Wales, a land of rolling green hills, mist-covered valleys, and the rich veins of ancient mining heritage. Here, among the slate, tin, lead, and coal mines, we find the Coblynau, the close cousins of the Cornish knockers. Described as gnome-like beings, the Coblynau were thought to be tireless diggers, mirroring the miners' own relentless efforts underground. With their tiny tools and lanterns, they worked alongside the men, carving tunnels and sifting through the dark for hidden treasures. But the Coblynau weren't just hard workers, they were protectors, guiding miners to rich seams of ore and shielding them from harm. Unlike the sometimes mischievous knockers of Cornwall, the Coblynau were largely seen as benevolent. Their presence was welcomed, even celebrated. Miners would often pause their work to listen to the faint sounds of their tapping or whispered encouragement, believing these to be the Coblynau's way of communicating. If they were lucky, the spirits might lead them to a hidden vein of silver or a pocket of precious coal. One popular tale comes from the silver mines of Cwmwyswyth in the late 19th century. The story goes that the miner named Evan Hughes was working late in a dimly lit tunnel. As he rested for a moment, he noticed a tiny figure flitting in and out of the shadows. It was no more than 3 feet tall, with a bearded face and a lantern that cast an otherworldly glow. The figure beckoned Evan towards a specific wall, motioning frantically as if urging him to act quickly. Though startled, Evan couldn't resist his curiosity. He began to dig at that spot, and soon his pickaxe struck something solid, a rich seam of silver glimmering in the light of his lantern. News of Evan's discovery spread like wildfire, and the miners of Cwmwyswyth honoured the Coblynau with offerings of bread, beer, and even songs of gratitude. To this day, the tale of Evan Hughes and his silver fortune is told as proof of the Coblynau's generosity. But the Coblynau's influence went beyond individual stories. They became part of Welsh mining culture, inspiring songs, rituals, and even superstitions. Miners would hum and even whistle cheerful tunes as they worked, believing the music invited the spirits to join them. It is said that a quiet mine was an unwelcome place for the Coblynau, who preferred the lively sounds of pickaxes and voices. Interestingly, the Coblynau weren't confined to silver mines alone. They were also said to frequent coal mines in South Wales, where they played a crucial role in safeguarding miners from perils like methane gas and collapsing tunnels. In one chilling account from the coal mine near Merthyr Tydfil, a group of miners reported hearing a frantic tapping from an abandoned shaft. At first, they dismissed it as the echoes of their own work, but when the tapping grew louder and more insistent, they decided to investigate. As they approached the source of the sound, the ceiling of the tunnel they'd been working on collapsed, sending a cloud of dust and rubble cascading down. Had they stayed, they would have been buried alive. The miners credited the Coblynau with saving their lives, and from then on they made sure to leave their offerings at the entrance of every new tunnel. The Coblynau's connection to the Welsh culture runs deep. Their name itself reflects the language of the land, derived from the Coblyn, known as goblin. But unlike the malevolent goblins of some folklore, these creatures were firmly on the sides of miners. They understood the dangers of the underground world, the claustrophobia, the constant threat of collapse. They were allies in the truest sense, sharing in both the toil and the triumphs of the mining life. And yet, for all their benevolence, the Coblynau weren't entirely predictable. There are stories of miners who disrespected the spirits, whether through careless words or by failing to leave offerings, and found themselves plagued by bad luck. Tools would disappear and tunnels would seem to shift in the dark. These tales leave us with a question. Were the Coblynau simply a way for miners to personify the dangers and unpredictability of their work, or was there truly something or someone watching over them in the shadows of the mines? One thing is certain, the stories of the Coblynau have endured, not just as folklore, but as a testament to the imagination and resilience of Welsh miners. Now, let's hop across the Atlantic to America, where the Cornish miners brought more than just their expertise in hard rock mining. They brought with them their stories. The knockers came with them, finding a new home in the deep, dangerous mines of the Appalachian, California, Nevada and beyond. Here they took on a slightly different name, the Tommy Knockers. The gold rush of the 1840s and 50s wasn't just a boom for prospectors, it was a massive migration of miners from Cornwall and Wales who brought their rich mining traditions and superstitions to the New World. It didn't take long for the stories of the Tommy Knockers to weave their way through the fabric of American mining folklore, and like their Cornish cousins, the Tommy Knockers were seen as both helpers and tricksters, guiding miners to fortune and in some cases warning them of imminent doom. Take for instance a tale from a silver mine in Nevada in the late 1800s. The story goes that a group of miners was working late one night deep in the bowels of the earth. The air was thick and heavy, the walls creaking under the strain of tons of rock. Then came the sound, frantic rhythmic knocking echoing through the tunnels. Some miners froze, their faces pale as they exchanged nervous glances. They believed the Tommy Knockers were trying to tell them something. A few men dropped their tools and fled the area, their instincts overriding their pride. Moments later, the ceiling collapsed, sending a deadly cloud of dust and debris into the shaft. The survivors credited the Tommy Knockers with saving their lives, and from then on the men left offerings of food, tobacco and even whiskey for the spirits, hoping to stay in their good graces. For decades the stories were passed down from in the mining camps, a stark reminder of the Tommy Knockers' dual nature, protectors and harbingers. But the Tommy Knockers weren't always benevolent. Just like their Cornish counterparts, they had a mischievous streak that could be downright unnerving. Tools would disappear, only to be found in impossible places, like wedged in crevices high above tunnels. Lanterns would go out without explanation, plunging miners into an oppressive darkness where the shadows seemed to move on their own. And then there was the voices. Many miners claimed that they could hear faint whispers and even laughter coming from unseen corners of the mine. Sometimes the Tommy Knockers would mimic the voices of miners themselves, calling out their names or repeating phrases in eerie, echoing tones. New miners, unfamiliar with this lore, often found themselves frightened out of their wits by these ghostly tricks. One miner from the Appalachian in early 1900s told a story that became infamous amongst his crew. While working alone one evening, he heard his name called clear as day from a nearby tunnel. Thinking it was his friend, he followed the voice, only to find an empty shaft. As he turned to head back, the tunnel he'd been working on had collapsed behind him. Whether it was coincidence or intervention, he swore from that day forward that the Tommy Knockers had saved him and used their mimicry to lure him to safety. But not everyone saw the Tommy Knockers as benevolent. In the coal mines of West Virginia, some miners believed the spirits could turn vengeful if disrespected. One story tells of a miner who openly mocked the idea of Tommy Knockers, laughing at his crew as they left offerings of biscuits and whiskey. His luck soon took a turn from the worst. His tools broke, his lanterns shattered, and eventually a series of near-fatal accidents drove him out of the mine altogether. The crew took this as a warning: never mock the spirits of the deep. And the Tommyknockers even found their way into broader American culture. In mining towns across the West, stories of these mysterious spirits were told around campfires, fueling imaginations and providing comfort in the face of dangerous professions. For many miners, the Tommyknockers weren't just a superstition, they were a way of making sense of the relentless risks they faced every day. Now let's not forget how the Tommyknockers adapted to their new surroundings. In the rugged, wide open landscapes of America, the tales became infused with adventurous spirits of the frontier. The Tommyknockers weren't just miners' helpers, they were guardians of the underground, beings who demanded respect and rewarded those who listened. And so, what do you think? Were the Tommyknockers a psychological coping mechanism, a way for miners to find meaning in their dangerous work? Or could there be something deeper, a thread of the supernatural connecting Cornwall, Appalachia, and the mining towns of the Wild West? What's truly fascinating about these tales of knockers, Tommyknockers, and Goblin Eye is they aren't confined to Britain or America. Mining communities across the world, from Europe to South America and beyond, have their own stories of mysterious underground beings. Each culture adds its own unique twist, yet the themes of danger, mystery and protection remain constant. Let's start with Germany, a country rich in mining history. Here, miners spoke of kobolds, mischievous spirits who are believed to inhabit the dark recesses of mines. Kobolds, like their Welsh and Cornish counterparts, were a double-edged sword. They could warn miners of danger or lead them to veins of precious metals if they were in a good mood. The Harz Mountains, with their long history of silver mining, are especially rich in kobold lore. In the 16th century, miners at the Ramelsberg silver mine would leave their daily offerings of bread, beer, and even small trinkets at the mine's entrance. These gifts were meant to appease the kobolds and ensure a productive, safe day. Stories tell of kobolds who knock on walls to warn of impending collapses and saving countless lives. But there were also tales of miners who ignored or mocked the kobolds, only to find themselves plagued by misfortune, like tools breaking, lights extinguishing, and the tunnels collapsing without warning. Kobolds were so integral to mining culture that they even left their mark on modern science. The element cobalt takes its name from these mysterious spirits. Early German miners often encountered a troublesome ore that released toxic fumes when smelted, and they blamed it on the kobolds, calling it cobalt ore. Little did they know, they just discovered a new metal. Now let's journey to South America, where the silver mines of Bolivia and Peru hold their own eerie legends. Miners there speak of the Moquai, a goblin-like creature that lurks deep within the earth. The Moquai, much like the kobolds, walks a fine line between protector and trickster. In Bolivian folklore, the Moquai is said to be a small, stout figure with bright eyes and a mischievous grin. It believes that the Moquai guards the riches of the earth, and miners must earn their favour to strike it rich. Offerings are often a crucial part of this relationship. Before descending into the mines, miners would leave coca leaves, alcohol, and even sometimes cigarettes at designated spots, hoping the Moquai would guide their silver mains or protect them from the accidents. There's a chilling story from a silver mine in Potosí, Bolivia, one of the richest mining regions in history. A group of miners claimed they encountered one of the Moquai after finding an unexpectedly rich seam of silver. They described hearing laughter echoing through the tunnels and seeing a small shadowy figure darting just out of reach. Though they were initially frightened, they decided to leave a generous offerings of coca leaves and alcohol. And the following weeks brought even more great discoveries. The miners swore it was the Moquai's doing. But the Moquai wasn't always so kind. Miners who'd fail to show respect, or even worse, take more than their share, are said to incur its wrath. Stories tell of tunnels collapsing without warning, or miners going missing and their lanterns extinguished by unseen hands. Even in Japan, a culture far removed from the mines of Europe and South America, there are legends of underground spirits. The Yama no Kami, or the mountain spirits, are revered as protectors of those who venture into the earth. Though they are often associated with farmers and hunters, miners also honoured these spirits, believing they had the power to safeguard them against unnatural disaster and accidents. Before entering a mine, the Japanese miners would perform rituals at the entrance, offering rice, sake, and prayers to the Yama no Kami. It is said that ignoring these rituals could anger the spirits, leading to misfortune. In one tale from the Awakawa gold mine on the Sado Islands, miners reported that strange occurrences after a group failed to perform the proper rites. Tools went missing, eerie winds swept through the tunnels. Yet after the rituals were restored, the disturbances ceased and the miners were able to work in peace. So what's the common thread in all these stories? Perhaps it's the deep human desire to find order and meaning in places of chaos and danger. Mines, after all, are places of extremes, darkness and light, wealth and poverty, life and death. The spirits of the deep reflect this duality, embodying both the perils and the promise of mining. But there's something more universal here, isn't there? Whether it's the knockers of Cornwall, the gobbling eye of the Wales, or the kobolds of Germany and the makoe of South America, or even the Yamanokami of Japan, these stories speak to the shared human experience. They remind us of our vulnerability in the face of nature's raw power and the enduring need to believe in forces that guide us and protect us, even in the darkest depths of the earth. So what's the truth behind these tales? Could the knocking sounds be explained by seismic activity, shifting rocks, or the natural acoustics of deep tunnels? Maybe, but that doesn't diminish the powers of these stories. They're not just strange creatures, they're about community, the respect for the unknown, and the bond between humans and the natural world. And as we emerge from the dark tunnels of this episode, let's take a moment to appreciate the miners of the past, their bravery and their imagination and their belief in the unseen forces of the earth. And whether you see the knockers as spirits, legends, or simply echoes of human mind, their stories remind us of the enduring power of folklore. And thank you for joining me on this journey into the minds and the mysteries that lie within. Please do like and share these stories so we can keep these stories alive and continue the oral traditions of folklore. Also hit that notification button so you know when we take another journey through time. This is Podcast Folklore and I'm Chris, and until next time, keep your lanterns bright, your hearts open, your ears ready for the faintest knock, and as always, keep exploring the world with wonder.